Sometimes, whether you want to do some pull downs or you want to sculpt your guns with some tricep press downs, you need a nice lat pull down machine, but you don't want to break the bank. So we're going to show you how to make a solid do-it-yourself version for cheap. First up, a trip to Lowe's for some equipment. You're going to need two of these wall ceiling mount pulleys. It's a 2-inch pulley. It's rated at 480 pounds. It says that it's not for overhead lifting or for athletic activity, but we're going to use it for exactly that. So please remember, you do use this at your own risk. Next up, some 3/16 inch vinyl coated cable. It's rated at 840 pounds, so I think it'll get the job done. You will also need two 3/16 inch wire or cable thimbles. Make sure you check the box closely. I thought I had two of them, but one ended up being the wrong size, so eventually I'm going to have to go back and get another one. Next up, 3/16 inch cable clamps. You will need four of them. Again, make sure you check the box closely. It's very common for things to get mixed up in there. You will need four 1/4-inch hex bolts that are 2 inches long. Three 1/4-inch hex bolts that are 5 inches long. Eight 1/4-inch washers, but I usually assume that I count wrong, so I usually buy an extra one or two. And last but not least, six 1/4-inch hex nuts. Again, buying an extra one or two is not a bad idea. There are a couple other pieces of equipment that you're going to need, and we'll cover those as we go along. But one of the first things that you're going to need is a tubular piece of steel. We're using about a 4-foot long piece of 1.5-inch square tubing. We got this piece of metal from Tyler, who is one of our coaches. Not only is he a starting strength coach, he's also an engineer and so had access to this. If you can't find this at your local hardware store, you can contact a metal supply store, but you probably know someone who can get access to this for you. You're going to need to drill two 1/4-inch holes for each pulley. The locations of your pulleys are going to depend on the squat rack that you're attaching this to. This will make more sense in a little bit when you can see how we're going to set this up. When you've got an idea of where you want the pulleys to be, you can set it down like we do right here and then use a Sharpie or a pen to mark where you're going to drill. Once you've got your holes drilled, go ahead and take a bolt, a washer, and a nut and attach your pulley to the tube. Make sure that you insert the bolt through the pulley first and then through the tube and not in the other order. Otherwise, the excess amount of the bolt may get in the way of the cable later. We made this mistake and had to make some adjustments later on. Our square tubing is going to be attached to this wall-mounted rig. It's going to run from the left side, where I am right now, over to the right side. And so we're going to drill a 1/4-inch hole over here on the left. So we're making marks for where we're going to drill and drilling that hole. And we're also going to drill a 1/4-inch hole over on the right side as well. When you're drilling from underneath, probably all the time, but especially when you're drilling from underneath, please make sure that you wear safety glasses. Speaking as a person who has gotten a metal shaving in his eye, you don't want this to happen to you. Once those holes have been drilled, we bring the tubing over so that we can mark where we're going to attach the tubing to the rig itself. We stick the drill down through there to mark the first hole. You can see by how we have this set up that one of the pulleys will sit outside the rig. That's where the handle will be attached, and one of the pulleys will sit in between the two arms of the rig. That's where the weight stack will go. With the location of that hole now marked for us by the drill bit, we can go ahead and drill another 1/4-inch hole. Once that hole is drilled, we bring the tubing back over to the rig and we temporarily attach the right side with the bolt. Then we go over to the left side and we repeat the process. We use the drill bit to mark the location of the next hole. Again, once that hole is marked, we can go ahead and drill the next 1/4-inch hole. It's probably worth mentioning that we've been drilling smaller pilot holes this whole time as well. After that, you can go ahead and take your tubing back over to the rig or your squat rack, and you can actually attach the tubing to the rack. Go ahead and stick the bolt through. We're using a washer both on the top and the bottom, so on the head of the bolt as well as on the nut side. I would recommend that you stick the bolt in from the bottom, not from the top, so the excess bolt doesn't get in the way of the cable. Again, this is where we made a mistake, and we had to come back and change that later. Not that big of a deal, but we'd rather you didn't have to go through the same process. Once you're done attaching the pulleys to the tubing and the tubing to the rig or the squat rack, you're done with most of the hard work. At this point, you can go ahead and feed the cable through, make sure you don't have any obstructions, and then you're ready to start creating the loops at the ends of the cable. You're going to have to play around a little bit to get the right length. Once you've got an idea of where you want your loops to be, you can go ahead and fold your cable around that thimble and then apply your cable clamps. We used 2 cable clamps on each end, one facing each direction. We'll go ahead and skip forward here after we get the first one on so you can see what it looks like once the second one is on. After that, you get to have some fun. You will need a carabiner, one at each end, one to attach the weight stack to and one to attach the pull-down handle. You can always find a pull-down handle on Craigslist if you don't already have one, or on Facebook Marketplace, somebody's always selling one. And if you don't have a loading pin like Becky's using right there, you can go ahead and just use a loop of chain and loop the chain through the middle of the plates and then hook it up to the carabiner that way. That will work just as well. You'll notice we've got some extra cable. We didn't have anything with us to cut that, so we just looped it up and attached it to the cable itself. We'll eventually trim that up. As the weight gets heavier, you may find that your body wants to come up off of the bench or the chair that you're using. Now, if you actually had a commercial lat pull down that cost somewhere between $500 and $1,000 probably, you would have a knee pad that would keep you in place. Well, if you're using a squat rack or a rig like this, you can simply use your safeties. You'll notice that Becky turned the spotter arm upside down, and that will do a very nice job of keeping her in place as she performs the pull downs here.
If this was helpful to you, please let us know. Hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment below. Of course, feel free to check out any of our other videos, and we will see you next time. Hope this helps.